Your transport will be arriving shortly. Aside from that, enjoy your adventure at Kilimanjaro. Jumbo, everyone, and welcome to Kilimanjaro Safari. In order to keep your wait time to a minimum, we ask that you keep your group together, keep up with the party in front of you, and fill in all the available space. It is not necessary to form a single file line.
对啊，我坐很中间的，我还有个名字。
没有，
请你们两位一左右，左右不妨。
On the right, watch your hands, arms, feet, and legs. The doors will be sliding closed. Asante Sana wording. Asante Sana is a Swahili word that means thank you, and Twende does mean let's go.
Oh,
and Jumbo means hello, friends. My name's Kaylee. I'm going to be your guide on our adventure through the Harambe Wildlife Reserve today. Just a few safety notes before we make it out onto the reserve, though. Keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside this vehicle at all times, and stay seated for the entire safari. That does include any little ones, lap sitters. They need to remain fully seated in the same lap or on the bench the entire ride. And hold tight to your loose articles as well. Hats, glasses, cell phones, and cameras especially. If anything falls out of this truck on the reserve, I am not going to be able to stop to pick it up. Now, if you are going to be taking pictures, I recommend that you also keep those devices out and ready. These are wild, free-roaming animals. I'm not going to be able to stop for everything we see. The animals certainly will not stop for me either. So I'd recommend that you have them on your devices on an action, sport, or even live setting to be able to better capture the animals in motion. And if you are curious as to what we might be seeing out there, you can check the spotting guide up on the canopy. I'm not going to be able to guarantee that we're going to see everything on that spotting guide, least of all because the spotting guide has not been updated since 1998. So there are some things we might see that aren't on the spotting guide, and there are some things on the spotting guide that we're not going to see. What ends up out there on the reserve is all depending on what the animals want to do. It's depending on sleeping patterns, feeding habits, and all sorts of things. But we do usually have some pretty good luck, and that spotting guide there will give you an idea of what to look for. Now, before we get our clearance to enter the reserve, there is one more very important thing to keep in mind, and that is be respectful. We're guests in these animals' homes, after all, not the other way around. Attempts to get them to come closer or look at you are far more likely to scare them away, so we want to use more of our indoor voice out here on the reserve. But with all of that in mind, we're going to make our way into the Little Ituri Forest. And we're going to meet an okapi on the right. The okapi have beautiful stripes on their legs that make them look a bit like a zebra, but they're actually the only close relative to the giraffe. The stripes are there to help them camouflage into their surroundings. The okapi are actually so good at camouflage, with such a tendency to hide. Despite the fact that we know they're an endangered species, we actually don't know how many okapi are left in the wild. They're too difficult to track and spot to get an accurate count. A lot of these animals are going to rely on camouflage for defense because they can rely on the cover provided by the bushes and the trees to help protect them from predators. Over here on our left, we've got ourselves a black rhinoceros. The black rhino is the smallest of the African rhinos, but adults will still weigh around 3,000 pounds. They have a distinctive beak-shaped upper lip, different from their cousins, the white rhino, and that mouth shape is going to make it easier for them to get to scoop their food up off the forest floor and reach for food from bushes. The bushes and the trees are these animals' primary sources of food, which does make them a kind of animal called browsers. It's one of the two different kinds of herbivores. There's a saddle-billed stork walking around over here on our right-hand side. Incredibly tall birds. They can stand at around 5 feet with an average wingspan of 9 feet. Actually fairly solitary birds. They're only ever found alone or in mated pairs, but they do mate for life. Yeah, there was an antelope kind of hiding in the back there. There's a few more tucked in the bushes. The darker brown one in the corner was a bongo. Both males and females have horns. And then the lighter brown ones that were hiding in the bushes were greater kudu. They are both incredibly shy and reclusive, and they both also have white stripes for camouflage like the okapi do. We're going to head into the Safi River now, which is going to be home to animals who spend a lot of time in and around the water. So that's where we're going to be keeping an eye out around here. The water in the river is very important to the animals who live here, not just for drinking, but because it provides an extra layer of protection from the sun and from predators. Up on the bank over here, you got some large grayish-white birds called pink-backed pelicans. Actually the smallest of the pelicans, but their wingspan is still around 7 to 9 feet. If you look very closely down there in the water, there is a hippo moving through the water. I say moving through the water and not swimming because hippos cannot swim. They're too dense to float. Almost all their body weight is muscle, so they do sink. Instead of swimming, they just move through the water by walking along the bottom. They do spend the majority of their day in the water, protecting their sensitive skin from the sun. They can hold their breath up to 8 minutes at a time. They're considered to be among the largest and most dangerous land animals in the entire world. An adult hippo can weigh up to 5,500 pounds. They have one of the strongest bite forces out of any animal on the planet and are incredibly territorial. It's like the rest of the bloat is up here on the islands, and then there's a few back here by the waterfalls as well.
Over the railing.
Hippos have been historically feared and respected just as much as the crocodile, and we're seeing Nile crocodiles here on our left. There are two different categories of crocodile, freshwater and saltwater. The Nile crocodile is the largest of the freshwater kind, but there are some saltwater crocodiles that can grow to be at least 20 feet long. We're going to head out of the river and onto the largest area of the reserve, the savanna. But before we see any animals out there on the savanna, over here on the right is a baobab tree. The baobab will go without leaves for 9 months out of the year to conserve water. They can store thousands of gallons in their trunks, which is super useful to the animals on the savanna during droughts. And for that, the baobab tree is also known as the tree of life. Welcome out onto the savanna. The animals who live here are mainly grazers. That means they eat from the ground and the grasses as opposed to the browsers we saw back in the forest. There is one animal out here that does mainly eat from the trees, but they have to be a very tall one to be able to reach any. Don't see any yet, but we might find them further down the road. First of all, over here we're going to see some zebras. Zebras stick together in groups called dazzles. Their stripes help them blend in with each other to make it difficult for predators to single one of them out of the group to attack. The whole group will look like one big wall of stripes. Speaking of predators, too, we're actually going to see some painted dogs over here on our left. Also known as wild dogs, these are the most successful hunters on the savanna, with a success rate of 80 to 90%. They're pack hunters like their ancestor, the wolf. They're very good at communication and working together. They actually have different hunting strategies that they switch up depending on the kind of animal that they're hunting. Looks like up ahead we're going to see some Ankoli cattle. Actually, they're coming up over here on our left-hand side. Ankoli cattle's horns can get to be about 6 feet long. They might look heavy, but they're actually hollow on the inside. There are blood vessels running through those horns that help them regulate their temperature. Also called Watusi cattle, named after the Watusi people who were the first to domesticate them about 6,000 years ago. There's some sable antelopes over here on the left as well. The sable antelopes have extremely long horns as well. Those horns are very sharp and curved back to stop predators from jumping on their backs. Not a kind of animal you want to encounter in the wild. Definitely not one to mess with. They've been known to drive off lions. A lot of these animals do tend to stick together in groups for safety in numbers. Actually got a few wildebeest in the back corner there on the right. We might see even more as we continue. There are a lot of them out here on the reserve, but their herds in the wilds can number up to 1.5 million. We are coming up on the only browsers out on the savanna. Giraffes are the tallest animals in the world and the only ones who can reach most of the trees. So they take advantage of having no competition for their main food source. You can see both of them over here by the tree are using those super long tongues to reach out for their food. Giraffe tongues can get to be about 18 inches long. They're prehensile, which means independently flexible, so they can wrap them around branches and pull them into their mouths. They will spend almost their entire day eating. Giraffes do eat for about 20 hours a day, and they only sleep for 30 minutes. Not all at once either. They just take little power naps throughout the day, about 10 minutes at a time, and they sleep standing up. Now over here on our right-hand side, you see those teeny tiny little antelopes over there. Those are called springbok. The springbok are not babies. That is their full adult size. They are one of the smallest species of antelope in the world. Their size gives them a lot of different advantages. Actually capable of jumping 6 feet up and 13 feet forward in a single bound, which would be up into this truck and over to the other side. Actually also in the top 5 fastest land animals in the world, they're capable of running at about 55 miles an hour. Back there in the bushes, if you look all the way in the back on the left, is the opposite of the springbok, the eland. Some very large antelopes hiding in the tall grasses back there. Also very good jumpers, though. The common eland can get 6 feet in the air from a standing position. Well, someone's on the move over here on our left. You got some elephants hanging out back here. African elephants, of course. We know this because we're in Africa. But also, the easiest visual difference between African and Asian elephants for us to see is the shape of their ears. African elephants' ears will look a bit like the continent they're from. They're very large and rounded at the top, as opposed to Asian elephants' ears, which will be much smaller than this. They look a little droopy and they're flat across the top instead of rounded. There is a little bit of a size difference as well, so the African elephant does take the title of largest land animal in the entire world, while the Asian elephants come in at a very close second. A circle around a flamboyance of greater flamingos here. These are the largest and lightest pink of their species, but no flamingo starts out pink. They all come out of their shells looking a bit like little gray fluff balls. They start to develop their pink color at about 3 months after they're born. The color comes from a mineral found in brine shrimp and algae called beta-carotene. The more they eat, the pinker they get. They won't look fully pink like adults until at least 2 years. The color does fluctuate throughout their lives, actually. Sometimes they look a little pinker than other times. It all depends on what they're eating. Ah, that's why we had to stop for a second. Some rhinos heading down the road up ahead. I'm going to see them in a bit. The rhinos like to hang around at the mud wallow here on the left. On a sunny day, they roll around in the mud to give themselves a coating that acts a lot like natural sunscreen. But even when it's a little cloudy or like now, that cool mud can help soothe bug bites. There they are. And these two are white rhinos. That's the kind of rhino we'll find out here on the savannah. The largest of all rhinos. An adult can weigh up to 5,000 pounds, and a baby rhino gains about 2 to 4 pounds every day. I believe, actually, the smaller one over there is one of our 2-year-olds, who weighs over 2,000 pounds. As we turn the corner here, we're going to keep an eye out on the left-hand side. There is a cheetah walking around up on that hill. And then way back there, the fastest land animal in the entire world. Cheetahs can get from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 3 seconds. The top recorded speed is 75 miles an hour. That speed, plus their camouflage, makes them perfect ambush predators. That's how they hunt. And unlike most cats who are nocturnal, cheetahs are diurnal, most active during the day. Ostriches are one of the other incredibly fast animals out here on the reserve. They are the fastest birds on land. Their wings are not capable of getting their 300-pound bodies off the ground, so they can't fly, but they run at 40 miles an hour. Oh, let's talk about lions. We got a handsome man over here doing some grooming. Oh, it looks like Pretty Girl is sitting right behind him there. Lions are going to spend the majority of their day asleep or resting. During the day, their eyesight's about the same as ours. At night, it is 6 times better. So they spend their days conserving their energy for hunting at night. Not that he does any of the hunting, that is the female's job. Females outnumber males in any given pride, so the girls have the strength in numbers that they need to hunt successfully. We got some more of our ostriches and all of the rest of our rhinos. We're going to see them again. I'm going to come around to the other side of the clearing.
Look behind you.
And even when the lions split up, they can still communicate over very long distances. Their roars can be heard up to 5 miles away, even by humans, at their top volume. Oh, it looks like we've got some warthogs around the corner over here, too. They're going to be over here on our left. The holes in the ground here are their burrows. Warthogs are the largest burrowing animals in the entire world. Sometimes they dig their own, other times it is more of a finders keepers situation, and they steal them from other animals. Gonna get to see over here that difference in mouth shape. If you remember what the black rhino's face looks like, there is that difference between the beak-shaped upper lip and the white rhino's wide rectangular mouths. This mouth shape is going to make it easier for them to get as much grass in their mouth as possible at the same time, because they are grazers instead of browsers. And that mouth shape is actually how they get their name. White is a mistranslation of the Afrikaans word weit, which means wide. You're going to head into the Magadi Glen here, which is home to the Warden's Post, but not the Warden, because the post got taken over by a band of Nigerian dwarf goats. Who are the cutest little guys? All up there on the hill. They're also very useful animals to have around on pastures, though. Goats have amazing digestive systems, and they'll eat pretty much anything. So they clear out the tougher vegetation that other cattle can't or won't eat, kind of like a more sustainable and adorable version of lawnmowers. But as we exit the Magadi Glen, the safari is starting to come to an end. But we saw some pretty awesome stuff out there. And if you're wondering what you can do to help those amazing animals, the Disney Conservation Fund provides the funding to the research we do here on the reserve, as well as many projects and organizations worldwide. And here at Animal Kingdom, if you donate at any register in the park, Disney matches that donation dollar for dollar. But conservation doesn't have to end here on the reserve or even on the African savanna. You can participate in conservation efforts at home by getting to know the animals you share your own corner of the world with. So see what you can do. Maybe you can plant a pollinator garden to help out the honeybees, or look up what you're putting in your lawn to help keep the waterways clean. And of course, education is one of the most important parts of conservation, and you're already educating yourself just by being here on this safari. So on behalf of all of the animals on the reserve, thank you so much for joining us today. It was, of course, my pleasure being your safari guide. I hope I was able to give you guys a really awesome tour. I hope you get to see some more of the amazing animals out there in the park today, and I hope you learned something new, and you continue to learn as you continue on your journey through the park. There's so much more out there to see, so much more to learn. If you're curious about anything we saw, feel free to come on up and ask. My windows are literally always open. I'll be more than happy to share any more information and answer any questions to the best of my ability. Now's going to be a great time to check your rows, make sure you have everything you came onto the truck with. And in a moment, I'll share one more Swahili word with you to round out this adventure. Friends, Kwaherini means go well, so go well, go wild, go make a difference out there, and have an amazing rest of your day here at Animal Kingdom and wherever your next adventure takes you. On the right, watch your hands, arms, feet, and legs. Doors are sliding open. Watch your head.